Bergman, and you were listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 267. I'm here tonight with Steven Seagal,
Is that
Philip
Alex?
Dassing,
What's up?
Alexis Schlegel,
What's up, guys?
and special guest Pete Quinones.
What's up, gentlemen?
Hey,
What's going on, man?
thanks for coming on the podcast, Pete.
Well, now that everybody has to hide in their house and everything, I guess it's a lot easier than me going up to DC.
Right, yeah, exactly. We've only
Right.
been having guests like this until just recently. But, it's been fun, and it's opened up our options. Where do you hail from?
I'm just north of Atlanta.
Nice.
Originally from the Bronx, New York, though.
Okay, how long have you been in Atlanta
The
for?
boogie down.
I've been in Atlanta 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I just did a piss poor job.
Introducing?
Introducing. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Thanks. Anybody can do this sober. All right. Pete is the host of Freeman Beyond the Wall podcast. He's also the managing editor at libertarianinstitute.org. So, Pete, how long have you been doing Freeman Beyond the Wall?
Started it in July of 2017.
Wow. How many episodes are you guys on?
I released number 401 today.
Wow.
Damn.
Wow. Phil was just telling us that you actually had Ron Paul on.
Yeah, I had Ron. I released that episode on Monday. Yes, yeah.
That's amazing. That's got to be like the pinnacle of any libertarian podcast to be able to get Ron Paul on.
I think that was my 5th interview with him. So
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like where do you go
Nice
from
humble
there?
brag, Pete.
Where do you go from there except for to just like get him on again, you know? It's like
Well, the episode before that, I had James Corbett, and that was the first time I had ever had him on. So that was that made me real happy.
wow. That's pretty awesome.
What's James Corbett up to these days? I haven't heard much from him.
Oh, he puts out material every single day at this point.
I mean, the only thing I just remember that epic 9/11 video he put out. That was like the most viral thing he's done.
His
But
video,
yeah, I haven't been following him lately.
his video that he did a few months ago called the 5G Dragnet. That is the best explanation of 5G that I've heard anyone do.
Okay. Because I'd like to look into that more, but it just seemed like there's such misinformation out there. Like I'd definitely like to check him out on that.
So like what is the deal with 5G? Are you like skeptical of it?
Oh, I don't know that I'm worried about the radiation. That seems to be what the red herring is. It's basically I'm calling it Skynet.
Okay.
It's basically going to allow, I mean, real-time spying, and it's going to connect everything. I mean, it's going to get to the point where the appliances in your house are going to be talking to it.
Oh damn.
So that's the thing. It seems like everything, all the content about 5G, it's all about these like health hazards, and it just seems so left field. But I mean, that's kind of like it's more of a civil liberties issue.
Yeah.
Just the intrusion into your homes, like that. I don't think most people are focusing on. So that's pretty interesting. Like, you said James Corbett did like a really good.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. He talks about the radiation for about 2 minutes in the beginning, and then he just breaks down exactly how it's going to be used to just monitor everything that you do in your life.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, like, everything. Like everything's becoming smart everything. Appliances, your smart meter monitoring your electrical bills to virtually everything, and then all these dum-dums getting Alexa and what's the other ones in their home, Amazon Home, and all those like intrusion into their homes, just allowing it.
If you have a cell phone in your home, they can listen to anything.
Right, of course.
It's true, Pete, but here's my point. My point with the whole cell phone thing is this is what I've been railing against.
Yeah, he says this every
the fact
podcast.
I do. Is, when you butt dial somebody, your phone's in your pocket. You can only hear like every other word, and sometimes, your cell phones pinned against your leg and between the couch and stuff like that. Where now they made this thing where it's designed to pick up the pieces that are missed and like something you can hear across the room, which is just blows me away. Like everyone has this thing in their house, which is designed to hear you from room to room. So I feel like this is kind of like an extension off of that. Like, so yeah, if your cell phone's sitting out, they can hear you, but if you got it in the other room, you got it in your pants pocket, you know, this is a great way for them to check in on you. And I think like some of the stuff that you're seeing in China, like I don't know if you guys saw that like little mini documentary that one British reporter was doing.
It's amazing.
He was in Wuhan. Yeah, like I think like that shit's already happening here. That's already happening. They just can't tell you about it because there'd be uproars about civil liberty. People like, well, I wouldn't say uproar, maybe an uproar for maybe like the libertarian anarchist circles. But other than that, you know, everyone's probably cool with it these days. More and more, the shit. You know, each passing day, everyone's more of a status Karen who wants to snitch on everybody, and you know, they don't mind it as long as they got nothing to hide, right?
Yeah, it's like everyone's a Karen Wagner.
So yeah, Pete, man, I was hoping to have Kyle on, man. Kyle was supposed to come on. I was hoping so we could have you guys could have a talk.
What the hell's Kyle got going
Kyle
on?
Wagner?
What's he got going on that's so important?
What would I talk to him about?
So
he's
Pete,
everyone's favorite status.
So Pete, Phil was telling me that you actually were into some punk rock, or you are into some punk rock.
Yeah, you know, I grew up in New York, and I may have seen like Bad Brains at CBGB's and
awesome
bands like that. Fear at one of my favorite shows ever was seeing Fear at the Limelight. That was and meeting Lee Ving after and having a couple of drinks with them.
Oh, so how long ago did you meet Lee Ving?
1995.
Wow, that's awesome. I never got a chance to see Fear, but yeah, that's fucking badass. Like, what are your like favorite punk bands?
My favorite punk band, hands down, is The Damned.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're just. It's one thing that me and Daniel McAdams have in common. It was like I think we both ordered when they did the documentary a couple of years ago, Don't You Wish That We Were Dead? We both got them delivered on like the same day, and we were like watching it at the same time and shit like that.
Wait, so Daniel McAdams is into The Damned?
Oh yeah, huge into The Damned. He was in a punk band in the 80s.
Wow,
you guys didn't know that?
I didn't know.
Dude, what's with all these old school libertarians that are like OG, like into like, yeah, this is like mind blowing right now.
So was Dan McAdams in the punk band before or after he stole Pee Wee Herman's bicycle?
That's just
love
wrong.
that joke. I know, right?
It's
the
hilarious.
of the Alamo.
No, I love Dan McAdams. He's fucking awesome. But so yeah, like, so what are your like other favorite punk bands?
Well, I mean, Bad Brains. I have an original vinyl of Eye Against Eye. It still has the SST
fucking dope
brochure in it.
Nice.
I have I have three different versions. One is from Belgium, one is from England, and one is from here of Exploited, Let's Start a War.
Oh, badass.
That's one of my favorite albums of all time.
I just had Live at the White House on the turntable last night.
And I mean, with the Ramones, I mean, I'm from New York.
Yeah.
And if you hung out at CBGB's and everything, you know, and what's great is I've become friends with Gene Epstein, and his wife owns an apartment building that, like, if you walk out the front door and you turn left, you see where CBGB's used to be. And awesome. So I stay in that building every time I go up, and so I'm in that neighborhood, and you know, she like has a loft next to where the artist Basquiat had a loft, like right next door and everything, and it's just such a great neighborhood, and it's so punk rock. There's like there's a huge Blondie mural like right across the street from where I stay and everything, and yeah, I mean, Ramones, God,
any Minor Threat? Oh yeah, not a fan. Not a fan.
Not a Minor Threat guy.
So what do you have against Minor Threat? Is it the straight edge, or their music just never really hit you?
Just never really hit me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What
by
about
the
the
time,
Ruts, Pete?
about what?
The Ruts? You ever listen to the Ruts?
No,
Dude, I've never heard of the Ruts.
What? Okay.
but the but then as time went by, I started getting into thrash, and thrash had a lot of influence from punk. And then as
Sure.
as the 80s was wearing out, I started getting it. Like Jane's Addiction was like the one alternative band that like metal people could get into, and it was like cool.
Yeah, it's like the only one.
Yeah. And then after Jane's Addiction, that's when my Cure fascination started. And then after that, it was really getting into like Fields of the Nephilim, Sisters of Mercy kind of goth. And that's what
What's your favorite Damned record?
Machine Gun Etiquette.
Oh,
I mean,
that would be mine too.
Yeah, it's just it's diverse, and it's diverse. There's a lot of really good songwriting on it. I mean, Brian James isn't on it, but I mean, Brian James is an asshole. So,
What kind of thrash bands were you into, Pete?
my favorite thrash band will always be Megadeth.
Fuck
But
yeah, man. Yeah.
second is Overkill, and that's because
I
that's
love
another.
Overkill.
That's a Jersey band. I used to see them in New York all the time and everything. And then,
So badass.
Did you ever get into like too many hardcore bands from New York? Like
No.
do you like into the NYC hardcore scene at
Like
all? Or
Gorilla
like,
Biscuits.
I started getting into like Agnostic Front later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, and bands like that. Started getting into the Circle Jerk. I didn't get into Circle Jerks until much later on.
I love the Circle Jerks.
And yeah, so I really, the music that stuck with me was I'm wearing a Bauhaus shirt right now. I started getting into Bauhaus in like the 90s, and that's when I really realized I really liked post-punk a lot. Was Bauhaus and Joy Division and everything that grew out of that. Love and Rockets. I saw Love and Rockets. I got to hang out with Love and Rockets in New Orleans, which was really cool because Daniel Ash will always be one of my favorite guitar players. And I mean, just a lot of music has been a huge part of my life. I don't listen to as much music as I used to listen to just because I'm so busy and everything, but when I do listen to music, it's usually from way back. It's from back then. There are very few bands that have come out in the last 15 years, and I can name like 3 that I think are worth listening to. So.
How old are you, Pete?
52.
Yeah, like I think everybody kind of like thinks the music that was made when they were like 16 is like the best music.
I don't actually think that. I listen more to the bands that I was listening to when I was like 25. Like the stuff when I was 16, I could listen to like Ride the Lightning, but I could also listen to like the Hooters, All You Zombies. So I was like, I was all over the place in high school. I could listen to a bunch of different stuff and everything and enjoyed it all. But as I got out of high school and I picked up a guitar and I learned how to play and everything, then I started figuring out the kind of music that I really liked. I mean, I still like a lot of thrash and I still love to listen to punk, but I'm more if I'm sitting at home and I'm and edibles in play, I'm probably more I'm probably more apt to listen to like The Cure, Disintegration than Let's Start a War, something like that.
Feels like when you get older, you kind of mellow out. Like,
I mean, I don't know how mellow that album is. I mean, that album's actually pretty intense when you listen to it. But yeah, I can understand how. Yeah, I hear intensity in things that other people don't. Stuff doesn't have to be hard and fast, and with brutal lyrics for me to think that it's intense.
yeah. I guess like I listen to a lot of like fuck shit up music when I'm like, you know, doing the dishes or cleaning around the house. But yeah, you can only like listen to that so much. Like after a while, like I don't know, the older I get, I'm more like mellowing out. Especially, yeah. So
You're more Yanni nowadays, right, Alexis?
yeah, dude. Yanni, Michael Bolton,
Enya.
you know, who
Enya.
else? Kenny G,
Coldplay.
the Four Horsemen of Fag.
Wow.
Kenny G.
I've been listening to a lot of Rush lately.
Oh yeah, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was
I
that one
just-
concept album that Rush did? I was
Isn't
listening
it like
to that
2012
a couple months ago.
2012 or something, or 2012?
One.
Yeah, they did all
One
the
concept.
Yeah, right.
It's like everything from 1976 to 1980 was a concept album.
It was like I forget which one it was. It was like the mid '70s album. Like, cause that's the thing. Like I've always
2112.
yeah, that was it.
The
yeah.
one, like the Ayn Rand one.
I was just listening to that the other night, and that's the thing. Like I was like, I never really got into Rush because it's like you hear all their like radio friendly songs. It's like, okay. But then now that like you could go on any music platform and stream anything and find albums, like full albums, and I find myself going back and like discovering artists that's like, wow, like this is, why wasn't this played on the radio? Or like, why was I introduced like to this like era of Rush where like this album is amazing? You know, you're kind of just in this day and age, I find myself discovering more and more music. But I digress. But yeah, it was a wild album. That was a really good album.
Yeah, Train to Bangkok is like amazing. The guitar playing on that's amazing. Just the way they can mimic so many different sounds from around the world on that's pretty cool.
Wow, I'll have to check that out too.
Pretty good. I'm just glad that you actually say you listen to music still.
You don't deny it.
Yeah,
Like,
we just had Jeff Geist on last week, and we wanted to talk to him about being in the punk and stuff, and he let off was like, "Yeah, I don't listen to music anymore."
That was kind of odd.
Okay.
Like I found that kind of odd. Like no matter what, no matter how busy you get or how old you get, I feel as though like if you grew up on music and listened to music, you're always gonna like want to listen to music. Like I just thought that was a little, I don't know. Like I was like,
thought it
really,
was
dude?
just
Like,
a human need.
If
Right,
you would have
yeah,
mentioned,
exactly, Jared. Yeah.
if
Like,
you would
I
have
don't know,
mentioned
like-
Motorhead, he would have talked.
And it's funny,
He and I-
did talk
He and
about
I have
some of
had
that.
long discussions about Motorhead.
That's what everyone
Yeah,
says. We've talked to him, like, even afterwards, we were like, oh, yeah, so people were like, oh, you should have talked to him about Megadeth. You should have talked to him about Motorhead. And we're like, he brought it up, but he said he didn't listen to it. He said he hadn't listened to music in years. I think it was.
Yeah, see, I was
We were
like,
oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I think maybe we didn't press him on that. Like, we didn't press him on that. Like, we just kind of let it ride.
Should've. Yeah. Still a great podcast. Still great, Jeff.
No, it was a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, he's one of the better and more original thinkers out there right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if we would have talked like Megadeth or talked some Motorhead, that would have been awesome. Like,
Oh yeah, he's a huge Motorhead fan. He loves Lemmy. He misses Lemmy.
fuck, yeah, like
I know, right?
the
It's
Chase
crazy,
better
'cause-
than the Catch. Such a great song.
I know. Like, I remember I saw Motorhead with Dio and Iron Maiden when I was
With
in high
Dio,
school.
what the fuck?
Wow.
In high school, Phil?
It was the best show ever. And I'm like,
Was it with your dad?
yeah, I was in high school. It was like
Your
2003.
Uncle
Huh?
Rico?
Do you want to know the first? Do you want to know the first show I ever saw Motorhead at?
What's that?
Slayer, Motorhead, and Overkill.
Oh, damn.
Oh,
that's-
my God.
Fuck.
That'd been badass.
South
What
of
year was
Heaven
this?
tour. South of Heaven tour for Motorhead. For Slayer, Orgasmatron for Motorhead.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Dude. A little bit
Yeah, that
before
was-
my time, I'd say.
That was
Can
wild.
we go around the horn? Best show we've ever been to?
Oh,
I
shit.
don't know, dude.
What's the best show you've been to?
I would say for me it was probably DI. Like it was around about year
That's
2000.
Right, yeah. What
What
about you, Alex?
Yeah.
Now that I'm like thinking back, like overall, the best show it was probably Converge, Mastodon, and Slayer. But
shit.
yeah, but I think like now that I'm thinking like the single artists like that I was glad that I actually got to see, and like Pete, I don't know, I was gonna ask you about it, like, and Phil, we've talked about it, like one of the probably most like underrated hardcore bands coming out of like New York was like Leeway, and I saw Leeway when I saw Leeway when I was stationed over in London, and they were like just did a one-off show, and I was like, holy shit, I was so stoked like to see them. It was like, I don't know, 2006 maybe, but
that was awesome because they're like a good crossover New York hardcore band, like a really good.
Did you ever get into them,
Leeway.
Pete?
No.
Okay.
You should check them out. They're pretty dope. Yeah, but so like obviously the Iron Maiden show I went to was one of the best I went to, but I went to this Stillborn Fest. Have you guys, Hatebreed is a Stillborn was their record label, and it had Stillborn Fest in 2003. It was at the 930 Club in DC, and it was Hatebreed, Sick of It All, Madball, Agnostic Front, and Zero, Stretch Armstrong with Honor. Yeah, it was the most crazy show I've been to, and like Hatebreed played for like 2 straight hours. It was insane. They played literally every song they had up until that point. That was definitely has to be one of my favorite shows.
That's a really good venue too, 930 Club. That's a good venue.
I guess. I mean,
they don't play anymore.
I fucking hate driving to DC.
Oh no, dude, definitely. Like I hate driving down to DC, but
I like 930. I hate.
But I mean, as far as just a venue itself, yeah.
Echo Stage sucks.
Matt, you don't drive anywhere, to be frank. I mean,
pretty much.
Yeah, if he's got to leave his house, this quarantine's been his favorite thing.
Are y'all familiar with the legend?
I say, Pete, you live in it.
Hold on, Pete. You were saying something.
Are y'all familiar with the legend of the Cameo Theater in Miami?
No.
Yeah,
I've never been to Miami.
They're closed now, but yeah, back then it was referred to as the Slamio, and it got to the point where they had to remove like the first 5 or 6 rows so that people could slam. But I mean, I saw Celtic Frost there. Saw Megadeth and Anthrax play the same Anthrax? Show. Yeah.
So fucking cool.
Everyone played there. I mean, I saw friggin' Peter Murphy play there. And Jewel was opening for him at the time. I saw Nitzer Ebb played there. I mean, everyone who could possibly you could think of, every punk show would be there or at Churchill's. You know the legend of Churchill's in Miami? Churchill's
I don't know at all.
Oh, it's the punk heaven. I mean, that's where every punk band would play and every local punk band would want to play. It's hard for me to say what the best show I've ever been to. I was at a really infamous show of Metallica opening for Ozzy at the Brendan Byrne Arena in Jersey, and it was when Metallica was on stage, people started ripping up the seats and burning them. And like bands up until that point hadn't really had to take out big insurance policies to play, and that changed everything. That show made it ridiculous. I saw the Monsters of Rock show, which was Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come.
Wow.
That was at Miami Arena in Miami, and that was a crazy show. But I really think that Slayer, Motorhead, and Overkill show was probably the best thing I ever saw. It was one of those shows where we were smoking the whole time, and it was so intense that after like 2 songs, you'd be like, "I'm sober. What the fuck just happened?" You know,
how long did Slayer play, Pete? Like, how long was their set?
It's probably like an hour and 25 minutes or an hour and a half, because they were on South of Heaven at that point. So they were playing, most of South of Heaven, most of Rain and Blood. They played Haunting the Chapel, which was amazing because I didn't think there was any way they were going to play that. They played a couple songs off of Hella Waits and like 2 songs off of Show No Mercy. So that was a cool show. But and Motorhead was great.
Thing, like I remember, like that's the one thing I remember when I saw them. Like they probably played for like an hour and 45 to almost 2 hours, and it was just like non-fucking stop, and it was just so overwhelming. It was just so fucking intense. It was just like you said, like holy shit, I'm sober now, you know.
Well, it's just the great thing about that show too was it was the last show of the tour. So like when Slayer
went all out.
Yeah, when Slayer was playing Behind the Crooked Cross, Lemmy came out goose stepping in a Hitler mask.
Oh my
across
God.
the stage.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty whacked, man. That was a great show, man. That was when Slayer was when the albums didn't all sound the same.
Yeah.
After as pretty much what it turned into later into the 90s and into the 2000s and everything. But
so you were in Miami for a while, right? Like in the late 80s, I take it.
Yeah. There was a lot of good shows.
So cool.
I saw Metallica and Queensryche, and Queensryche was on the Operation Mindcrime tour. That was actually a really good show. They came out and like started with Queen of the Reich, and so that just like set the tone.
Yeah, I was never really a big Queensryche fan, but yeah, it's funny because like I listen. There's MTV like Classics or something like that. They have a heavy metal show that comes out. It's like Friday night at like it's like 5 hours of a block. It comes on and they play nothing but like old school metal bands like Dio, Iron Maiden, like even like some terrible bands like Dokken and like just it's pretty crazy. So I watch it with my kids and it's so funny. Like those Slayer, Overkill, like there's Metallica videos, and I just watch it and like it's so fun. Like it brings me back to like in high school, like listening to these old metal thrash bands and shit.
Well, when I was in high school, I saw Dokken open for Twisted Sister at Radio City Music Hall, and that was a really good show. I mean, Twisted Sister went all out on that show. I mean, the stage looked like a slum with burnt out cars and stuff like that. It was nuts. But the year before that, I saw Maiden there on the Power Slave tour, and they did 8 nights in a row.
Oh.
At Radio City Music Hall.
8 nights in a row?
Yeah. And
holy shit.
Then when they came back for the Somewhere in Time tour, I saw them in Florida, and Yngwie Malmsteen opened for them.
Wow.
What?
So Jared, besides your bar mitzvah, what was the best show you've ever been to?
Dude, I don't know. That's a tough one, man. It's hard to rank. I mean, I know some of my favorite shows were going to see this smaller like metalcore band in my mid-20s called Protest the Hero. And those shows were just fucking awesome because I would see them at like small venues like Auto Bar, like where did I see them up in Pittsburgh?
Dude, did your voice just do the Peter Brady thing again?
Yeah, your mom bit my dick. Sorry.
Oh man.
Yeah. I guess that's my answer. It's hard to say. I've seen a lot of different shit, but those were some of my favorite shows for sure.
Did you go to the show? Did you go to the Metallica show when they played in Baltimore at M&T?
Oh yeah, I got free tickets to that. That was fucking awesome though. I don't know if it was my favorite show.
Like, was it though? I mean, in all honesty, like, was it like
no,
was it like that good?
I mean, I had an awesome time. It was good, yeah.
For free tickets, like
for free, yeah.
I would definitely go for free tickets to see Metallica.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, like you got free tickets, but like so many people were paying high dollar. I'm like,
I mean, no, I wouldn't pay high dollar.
I never had the opportunity to see Metallica, but I don't want to see them now. Like, I was like, and I don't know. I think Phil, we debated that. Like, I think after Injustice, like, forget about it. Like, they're dead.
Even Injustice, where the hell's the bass? Where the hell's the bass in that album?
Right.
Well, that was all because of Lars Ulrich, actually.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I think like Injustice, like, but then when you actually think about it, it's like, all right, no, Masters of Puppet, after Cliff Burton, Metallica, forget about it. You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
And it's like I don't want to see, like, I don't want to pay high dollar to go see them playing like some arena rock bullshit in their, like, when these guys are geriatric. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
like,
dude, I've seen my
like,
favorite shows
guys,
for under $10.
what's that?
I've seen my favorite shows for under $10. Why the fuck am I going to pay like hundreds of dollars to see Metallica?
Oh yeah, exactly, Matt. Yeah. Like, dude,
yeah.
I think like one of the best shows. Like, remember that? With Tim and Matt, and then and me, we went to what was it? Sidebar. And saw fucking Wisdom in Chains. That was a dope show.
Yeah.
That was like, and Matt, that was like your first time, and like it was like Tim was down visiting from Philly, and he was like, oh yeah, we got tickets, we're gonna go, and he's like, Alex knows about him, like he knows, like, and that was your first time like ever going to the show, and like
ever seeing Wisdom in Chains.
Yeah. And within like the first like 2 or 3 songs, Matt's like, fuck yeah, like,
yeah, it's fucking awesome.
all right. Yeah.
They were like the kind of band where like if you see them, it's like, you know, you hear the first chorus and it's awesome. By the second chorus, you're singing along. That's how like catchy it was as far as like hardcore goes.
Yeah, like good sing-alongs.
I was kind of happy to see Nirvana like before he died. You know, like 8 months before he died. That was in Miami.
8 months before he died?
Yeah, I saw him in September of '93 in Miami. They're playing at the amphitheater in Miami, and the Breeders opened up for them.
Breeders, wow.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, I've seen so many like insanely good shows. There was a tour in 1991 that was called the Tune In Burnout tour, and it was Public Enemy, Sisters of Mercy, Warrior Soul, X, and it was that was a nuts show because there was so much going on there. And I saw the first Lollapalooza. You know, Jane's Addiction, Ice-T, and all. You know, I saw that in Orlando. That was a pretty crazy show.
Yeah, that's the farthest I've gone to see a show. I drove up in 2008 by myself up to.
Oh, was that when you went to go see Samwell?
No, I went and saw. I saw Body Count play with no redeeming social value in Brooklyn. It's some club, like some small ass club in Brooklyn, in 2008. And I drove all the way up just to see Body Count, and I drove all the way back that night.
Wow, how many people? How many people do you think were in that club?
Probably, I would say less than 100.
No way! Wow, shit.
It was the top of. I wish I could remember the venue was called, but it's somewhere in Brooklyn. I have no file on New York City. Like I've only been there like 2 times, and once as an adult, and that's why I drove up just to go see Body Count, and that's the farthest I've driven, just because like. I was obsessed. Like, this is probably one of my favorite bands. So it was fucking awesome.
Do you remember DOA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw DOA at Irving Plaza in New York when I was in high school. That was a really good show.
Oh shit! Oh my god, that would have been so badass. Like
it's
heart, man. Like,
oh yeah, they were nuts, man. They were from Canada, and they would tour like 56 weeks a year. I mean, it was ridiculous. The stories about their touring, it was nuts. And I got to meet them and everything, and it was really cool. That was a fun show. Irving Plaza was always a lot of fun to go to. I saw Cro-Mags at Irving Plaza and friggin' Harley trying to beat the shit out of somebody. You know?
So,
oh my god, that's so awesome.
So,
I love Cro-Mags.
Pete, what do you think is like the best DOA album, if like for somebody who's never gotten into DOA?
I don't remember. That's so long ago. I haven't listened to DOA in so long. I can't remember the names of their albums.
Hardcore 81, man.
Like, dude, I remember I picked up like an EP of theirs in like the budget bin at some CD store in the 90s, and it was like they were covering "It's Not Unusual." Remember that song?
That's not
wait, Tom Jones?
Yeah, they were covering Tom Jones.
Tom Jones.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, what?
And I mean, I thought it was kind of funny. I listened to it a couple times, but I always wanted to like pick up like one of their like classic records or whatever, but I haven't gotten around to it.
I just thought of another show that and a band that I really like was I saw Prong open up for White Zombie. And
Oh wow.
what's funny is when I went to see Love and Rockets in New Orleans, Tommy Victor from Prong was hanging out with them. So we got to hang out with the. I could do like a whole bunch of name dropping right now, and I just don't want to be a total dick.
No, do it. Name drop, bro. Do it.
Dude, you're,
I
you're
love
making,
name dropping.
you're making Phil's cock hard.
All right,
We're
well,
just happy someone's. We're just happy someone's actually talking about punk for once.
the bass
Yeah, I
player
know.
and
Yeah. Like,
The bass-
seriously, like, I
What?
think from this point on, Matt, like, if anybody's like, oh, what's so fucking punk about this libertarian website, we could just refer to this
This podcast.
podcast
Pete,
episode. Like,
Pete, you don't understand how much
like-
people give a shit for not talking about punk as much as
yeah,
libertarianism
for
in our
like
group.
probably, 40 fucking minutes, a bunch of libertarians have just been talking
Talking
like,
about music, like just music,
talking
like, right?
about music and just fucking vibing. You know what I mean?
All right, well,
So anybody's like, oh, what's so punk about this libertarian site? Refer to episode right fucking now. Like,
well, this
insert
this
this episode right
there aren't a lot of there's not a lot of punk in this in this story, but my bass player in my band was roommates for 5 years with Jordy White. If you know who Jordy White is, his name is Twiggy Ramirez. And
Yeah, Twiggy.
yeah. So, like I said, I lived in South Florida for a long time. So I also,
Shit.
knew, and this was when everything was happening in the early 90s. And so, yeah, I know Brian Hugh Warner, and they, of course, know Trent. They got signed because of Trent Reznor. Well, that was going to see Love and Rockets in New Orleans, was also hanging out at Trent Reznor's house studio in New Orleans. And that's why Love and Rockets was there. And that's how I got to hang out with them. But Tommy Victor was also there. And I ended up I hung out with Daniel Ash for a while, but I ended up like hanging out with Tommy Victor from Prong like most of the night, and just getting hammered, blackout drunk with him, just, talking shit and everything.
white girl wasted.
What?
White girl wasted.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was it was bad, but yeah, Tommy from Prong, and I mean he's played since he's played with Danzig, he's played
Yeah, Danzig. That's what I know him from.
yeah, but Prong was a huge influence on my guitar playing, because his riffs are remarkable. I mean, when you listen to like Lost and Found, but then when you get into Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck, where he almost progressed to being more industrial.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Did you know him when
that
you were
guy
in New
just-
York? Or
No.
did you know them only when they were in Florida?
no, because Prong really, I moved to Florida in '86, and Prong really didn't
okay.
start. People really
Yeah.
didn't start knowing who Prong was till like 89, 90.
I was gonna say, like almost early '90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, music has been like a huge. Did y'all ever hear of a band called Jack Off Jill?
I've definitely heard of that band.
They were
Yeah.
an all girl punk band. And yeah, I mean, I know everybody in that band. I've known everybody in that band for years, and they were one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Their live shows were legendary.
Okay.
And,
Like, did they have an album that you would recommend?
what was the first
no?
album that they put out?
If you don't know off the top of your head, I'll just look it up later. I'll look it up
Yeah.
on Discogs.
The first album.
But yeah, like I'm interested in finding some new music, man.
Yeah.
trying to figure out.
Because they were like later '90s band. Did you say?
Well, no, they started in '92
Oh shit.
because they were Marilyn Manson. Jessica was friends with Brian from Manson, so that's how they got their start, really.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like if you can find like the old EPs for like My Cat and Swollen, I mean that's like where they're really, if you can find their 45s, that's where the good music is. When they finally did get a chance to record an album, it was sort of it was cleaned up a lot, and it really didn't have the same live effect. But yeah, they were pretty cool. And Jessica, she just had a great voice and had a great sound.
Nice.
Fucking dope.
So Phil, what is your take on coronavirus? So I've been
Me?
I'm sorry, not Phil.
Said Phil.
Wait, we don't care about what Phil thinks.
Yeah,
I know.
fuck,
Like,
yeah,
we need
fuck
to know
Phil.
what
Come
I
on.
think.
No, Pete. So, what is your take on coronavirus? Do you think this is being like blown up way more than it should be?
I think it's a bioweapon that really fucks up a lot of people.
Yes.
So you're saying you think this is man-made?
Yeah, I think it's escaped from the Wuhan laboratory there, which is a new laboratory actually, but that's what most people don't know, is the laboratory was just built recently and it has new employees. Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say, oh, they released it on purpose. I mean, I live 5 miles from the CDC. Shit walks out of the CDC all the time. People just don't hear about it. I think it was someone just made a fucking mistake and brought that shit out and started spreading it. And I think I was really skeptical about it until I read that the way it attacks the lungs is that it attacks both lungs. And that's not normal for any kind of virus. They usually go after one lung. And so this is an odd thing. Also, the fact that it makes people lose sense of smell and taste, that's just really weird for something that evolved in nature. It sounds
like a nerve agent.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something more designed. But it's really odd. I'm almost 100% sure that I've had it, and it doesn't really scare me. But I also don't have any lung problems, and I don't have any autoimmune problems. But I know of people who had it, and it really fucked them up. And it's
have you connected the dots with that Harvard professor that who was just recently he was tried and convicted, and he was working in that laboratory, that Harvard professor? He was working in that laboratory in Wuhan. There was like also that, that this could be maybe.
Is that the one who allegedly had like 50 different samples of DNA or something when they arrested him?
I think I'd have to get in the docs. Maybe Phil or Jared.
You think it balls deep?
Dude, you get into your own docs, dude. I'm staying out of it.
I'm out here in my truck. I can't access the docs. All right.
Yeah.
I'm just a man in my truck.
With George Washington.
I heard.
Go ahead, Pete.
No, but
everything I've heard is that the hydrochloroquine with zinc or with a Z-Pack or something is doing really good work on curing it and bringing people back from it. The people that do get sick now, Iceland, I don't know if you've heard about Iceland recently. Iceland has gotten to the point where they've tested a lot of people. I mean, there's only 300,000 residents on the island. Right. So, but 50% of the ones that tested positive were asymptomatic. That's just really odd. I mean, that's odd. Just really weird that it almost seems, and then you have to ask questions like, how come it hasn't hit India yet? And I mean, they're so close to China.
The other thing too, like look at Korea, like South Korea, the fact that they were like at ground zero, and they're having baseball season right now.
South Korea?
They're starting their spring training right now. They were like,
they started using hydrochloroquine in February.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And they started like testing. They tested everybody. They quarantined and basically did preventive measures. And then the fact that they have such a free market healthcare system and such easy access to healthcare over there, the fact that they're literally about to have baseball season start in South Korea, and we're still like freaking the fuck out over here.
Mhm.
You know, the
Well,
fact that like,
and
yeah,
let's face it, this is, I mean, you can believe that this is a really bad virus and that the government is doing really tyrannical shit at the same time.
Exactly.
exactly,
Yep.
fucking
you,
exactly. It's
and
yeah.
they are. I mean, I've only done one episode out of my last 8 that I didn't talk about this, and it's only because it was an
Same.
episode I've been sitting on for like a month and a half, 2 months. And the episode that I have coming out on Friday is going to be about it again. And then finally, I'm going to do an episode on Monday on what I think is the only way we're going to be able to defeat this, but not the disease, but the tyranny. I think that this is, I was talking. Do you guys know who Richard Grove is?
Yeah, I've heard him on your show. That's where I've heard Richard Grove.
TragedyandHope.com. Brilliant dude. And I talked to him today, and he knows more. I'm going to release this episode on Friday. He knows more about this than anyone that I've talked to. We went over Event 201, which was the October, September. What they did was they ran a simulation of what would happen if a coronavirus got released into the world. And they did this in September of last year. And it was completely different. It started in South America and then it started spreading. But when you look at the reaction that they simulated to what the governments are doing, especially Western governments, you can just see that this has gone from a pandemic to a plandemic, where they're planning to change our lives forever. I mean, I do not think that we're ever going to be the same again. I think that
what kind of changes do you think we're going to see?
I think that a lot of the culture is going to become very Asian in that I think people are going to continue to wear masks from now on. I think that what China is doing right now, which Robert F. Kennedy Jr. showed on that video from the British gentleman, where you may have to have people take your temperature in order to enter certain places. In China right now, they have to take your temperature before you look into what looks like a tablet, and it takes your temperature. And if your temperature doesn't come out right, you're not allowed to leave your house. I think a lot of this is coming. I don't see 30 million people, 40 million people being unemployed, everybody, and how people have turned into, like, I'm going to turn in my neighbor if my neighbor's gardening. I don't see how the United States or the West is ever going to be the same again. I mean, I think that if you travel, especially out of the country, you're probably going to have to present immunization papers, say, hey, I have all these shots, everything. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see them going in 3 weeks being like, okay, the curve's flattened out, everything's fine, everything goes back to normal. I just don't. I don't see that happening. And I was, I said in January, I was on Dave Smith's show in January when we were talking about individual liberty. And I said, well, what would happen what do you think would happen if another 9/11 happened tomorrow? And another 9/11 happened, but it's 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Richard Grove, and Richard Grove is, he believes that there is a hell of a lot more to 9/11 than what we're taught. And he's researched it for years and he can go into it. And I asked him today, I said, this is worse than 9/11 by like 10 times, right? He's like, people don't realize that yet. He goes, this is way worse than 9/11. Things are going to change forever. I mean, so much so that I'm like totally changed my paradigm on a lot of, I'm no longer going to be politically active. I'm not going to have anything to do with the LP anymore. If people want to, fine, good luck to you. There's no political, to quote Sting, there's no political solution for this. This is done. I mean, we're going to have to figure out a way to subvert the government from here on out.
So are you advising against political action in the LP because it's just fruitless? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just don't see how it's going to be. I don't see. I mean, if the Republicans, there's going to be one Republican that is going to fight back against this, maybe two. No Democrat's going to fight back against this. So
like Tom Massey, Rand Paul.
So what the
Obama,
hell?
That's
So
it.
what the hell is the fucking gelded LP going to be able to accomplish? I mean, maybe education, but I mean, still, you need to be taking individual action right now to just. You need to be setting your life up to try to combat this. Yeah, you need to do things to. I mean, I'm going to be talking with a friend of mine who is a little more schooled on ways to take action to subvert the state and everything. But I don't
do you have any examples, like right now?
Oh, I would say agorism.
Okay.
I would say just embrace agorism 100%.
Sure.
And I mean, I think that's the only possible way to fight this going forward.
Yeah, man. I agree with you to a certain extent. Like, I think there is a role still for the LP. I'm the Maryland coordinator for the Mises Caucus, and I still think there is a role for the LP to somehow just be the last people if you could just be the last people that are saying, hey, look, there's another way besides this behemoth, mammoth, massive government apparatus that's destroying all of your freedoms. Like, there's another way. And I think if we look at the Ron Paul revolution, it was started by a campaign for running for president, and I think
on the Republican ticket,
right,
on a Republican stage.
You're right, exactly. And
they're not going to let a libertarian anywhere near a stage.
No, and I've accepted that, but I still think that there's room for a political option. But I think it's an all-encompassing. I think with agorism, I think it's absolutely right. You need to start like I know in my own household, my kids see it every day. They see me subverting the state every single day, and I think it's with education and teaching the new generation. I have 3 kids, and maybe to a fault, they know more. They're always like, "Oh, Daddy's talking about government again." Like, "Oh, government's the bad thing." Like, and I try not to be like indoctrinating them, but it's like I have to fight. Other indoctrination. So it's like, I just can't help myself. I have to keep telling.
Well, yeah, I mean, how much are they getting at school already?
Yeah, it's so bad enough. Like I feel like I've already failed them enough. The fact that they're in government schooling, and we're working hard to get them out of it, and especially this time, this whole period with the coronavirus. I know recently they just shut down Georgia where you're at, but up here, we've been at it for a few weeks, and it's been the best time ever. Having all this time with my kids and just being able to teach them my own way and teach them it's great. Like, I don't understand why homeschooling. Everyone's people, my friends are commenting on Facebook oh God, I'm so miserable having my kids here. They're driving me crazy. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that my kids are home and they're not in these camps, where they're being taught, worship the flag and all sorts of other bullshit. And and I feel like I already failed them enough, so I feel like I'm getting a second chance. And eventually, we're working to, financially, we're trying to get them out. And I think there's a multi-tiered, back to what we were saying before. I feel like there's a multi-tiered way of advancing the ideas of liberty, and I think that's through the LP, agorism, just homeschooling, unschooling. We got to. It's not going to be if we know anything we've learned from the progressives is that it's going to take some time, and eventually, if the state does collapse on itself, what's that?
Yep,
it takes a village.
But that's December. Yeah, right. But to me, that's December 2019 thinking. This is April 2020 thinking, and the world has fundamentally changed.
You're right.
Pete, to your point, to your point, Pete, and then also exactly where Phil's coming from. I mean, both of us, and even Jared as well, we were elected as delegates to go to the convention in Austin.
Me too.
Texas, for the Maryland LP, and
nice.
I'm
how's that working out
for?
I'm not going.
Exactly. I'm hardcore meat.
Of course, it's not going to happen.
I'm 100% Jacob Hornberger, but I guess what I'm getting at is just what you're talking about and what Phil's talking about. The whole thing is yes, the whole reason we wanted to go down there is to network, to grow the message and get it out there. But now, like you said, Pete, things have fundamentally changed. And everything we were going to go to Austin to basically to further the Liberty Network, I think things have changed. And even just on this podcast alone, like the fact that we're zooming in people, that the fact we're reaching out via the interwebs and through like, you know, back channels. I think it's time for agorism. It's time to like just fucking fuck the system. We free thinkers need to recalculate things right now, and we need to work amongst, like, we need to get together, and we need to create networks. We need to create, you know.
You're speaking my language, man. You're speaking my language.
And,
we need to stay in
and right
touch.
behind me, you know what I mean? It's time to like. We're in the midst of I think a paradigm shift, and it's fucking like this is like revolution 2.0 that we're going through on like so many fucking levels, and it's fucking time that like we start. Like it's time, and this time off has really helped me to realize and look at things and realize like, all right, it's time to start. Like the powers that be are trying to eliminate any threat to what's coming down the pipe.
Absolutely. And I think that a full tiered assault is the only chance we have to just to be. I just don't want to go down without a swinging. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what like I'm involved in the LP. My wife watches other kids, and and it's we don't go through the state. You know, I mean, we don't get like we it's. I wish I could explain it better, but it's just like my kids need to see that the state's not the option, the end all be all, and I think this time off is really waking me up to the fact that yes, you're right. Like we need to subvert the state as much as possible, but at the same time, like you know what, most people don't. They don't like Jeff Dice got shit in that speech he said where he's like blood and soil. You know, where he said he's like that matters to people, and like the same thing is the state still matters to all these people that are calling the police and shitting on like, oh my god, kids are playing on a basketball they're playing basketball right now, they're not social distancing or whatever.
Dude, like, I heard Kyle's already reported 3 neighbors, dude.
and he invited the CDC in for coffee.
Yeah,
right.
Well, hey, hey, guys, we're about out of time on here. Pete, I want to thank you so much for coming on, dude. It has been so much fun, and we'd love to have you back on again if you can find the time.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, just let me know a little bit ahead of time.
Oh, of course.
We won't have much more music to talk about.
Oh no, sure. Dude, we can always think of music to talk about.
We just scratched the surface on music, I think.
I mean, I'm not remembering like 75% of the shows I've ever been to, too. So
I'm right there with you, man.
Like a dedicated like cast just on music.
That's basically what this was.
I mean, right?
So Pete, why don't you give all your plugs, man?
Yeah.
Free Man Be on the Wall podcast. I'm the managing editor over at Libertarian Institute. That's a site that Scott Horton started with Sheldon Richman and the late great Will Grigg. And yeah, I mean, you'll find my name on Twitter and on Facebook. And yeah, man, I just this is a rough one. This is a rough one, man. This is a time when people really need to start thinking about what their strategy is for the future, because I think it's been proven pretty. There was just a fly crawling on me. I'm sorry. I think it's. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I think it's. If we haven't learned anything in the last month, I mean, what we've learned in the last month is that. Sorry, I've drank scotch today already, and
I'm trash, so
Scotch.
But if we've learned anything, is that people love their chains, and all they need to do is be scared a little bit, and they're going to beg for it. And I do not see one political solution to this. So, I'm taking a different road. And if anybody wants to contact me and try to strategize about it, I'm going to be talking to people who've been agorists for years and decades. And we're just going to put together plans and see where it goes from there.
Sounds
Cool.
awesome.
Pete, if you're, are you going to, if the LP convention happens, are you still going to go to Childerberg?
No, it's not going to happen, and I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
going
not
to.
happening.
I'm not going to go because there's just. I would love to go to Childerberg. No, I mean, I want to meet Carr. I've hung out with Bird, 3 or 4
I know,
times.
I've seen it. They're good friends of our podcast, so that's why I asked.
And but I haven't hung out with Carr yet. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this time because yeah, I know, but I'm sure there'll be a Childerberg trace, and hopefully, well, we'll see what happens when the coronavirus comes back in the winter, next winter.
All right, well, we're gonna take it on over to After Hours. Pete, if you want to stay and talk with us some more, you're welcome to. If you got to go, that's up to you. Either or, you're welcome to come.
All right, a few minutes, yeah.
Cool, yeah.
That's what she said.
Now, Phil, dude, weren't you going to tell us a little bit about the Conversations About Freedom podcast?
Conversation About Freedom podcast, man. Check it out. I know he was just on, we talked about this a lot, man, but he was just on Johnny Adams' podcast, Blast Off, and check him out. Moral Bob, he's everywhere. I know Pete, he's good friends with you too. So anyway, go check out Conversations About Freedom. I know he's on Spotify. I don't know if he's on iTunes or Apple Podcasts yet, but hopefully he's getting there soon. But either way, go check out Moral Bob on Facebook and give him a like and go check him out.
Do you have Moral Bob's Grinder handle?
Do not.
It's called Oral Bob.
Moral Bob. That's not nice.
Dude, it was just a joke, man. It was just a joke.
Hey, if you want to advertise on PRL, you gotta be ready for that shit,
dude. Anyways, so also we have t-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you'll receive a 10% discount. Until next time, live free
or die.